Lieutenant Danielle Carter stood at the docking bay window of the massive alien ship. Her reflection showed a woman of average height with short brown hair and alert eyes. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Space Force with a small pin, showing Earth and a handshake symbol. This was her first day as the human liaison officer on the Galactic Confederation vessel called Harmonious Unity. Danny took a deep breath. 6 months of training had prepared her for this moment, but nothing could truly ready a person for being the only human among 2,000 aliens from 30 different species. The ship itself was enormous, nearly 3 miles long and shaped. Like a giant oval with glowing blue rings that pulsed with energy, the doors slid open with a soft hiss. 2 aliens entered the room. The first was tall and thin with silver blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Long, graceful limbs moved. With careful precision and large, almond-shaped eyes studied Danny with open curiosity. "Welcome aboard the Harmonious Unity, Lieutenant Carter. I am Admiral Ziklara of the Aldurian people." The Admiral's voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We are most pleased to welcome the newest member species to our alliance." The second alien was shorter and stockier. His body was covered in reddish-brown plates that looked hard and protective. 4 black eyes blinked independently of each other, and small clicking sounds came from what Danny guessed was his mouth. "This is Commander Vexter, our Chief of Security," Admiral Ziklara said. "He is Krevelaxian." Vexter made no attempt to hide his careful inspection of Danny. His 4 eyes moved up and down, studying her with open suspicion. "The human appears fragile," Vexter said finally. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. Danny smiled politely. She had been warned about this. Most Confederation species evolved on worlds much gentler than Earth. They classified planets on a scale of 1 to 15 based on how dangerous they were. Earth was labeled a Class 12 death world because of its high gravity, extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, and wide temperature ranges. The Aldurians, like Admiral Ziklara, came from a Class 4 world with perfect weather and very little danger. The Krevelaxians were considered tough by Confederation standards, but even they evolved on a Class 7 world, far less challenging than Earth. "I assure you, Commander, humans are quite durable," Danny said. Admiral Ziklara's long fingers made a flowing gesture that Danny recognized as their equivalent of a smile. "Come, Lieutenant. We have prepared a welcome ceremony with 17 traditional greetings from our oldest member species." They walked through corridors filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had tentacles, others had wings. A few rolled on what looked like wheels. Many stopped to stare at Danny. Humans were still new to the Confederation. Having been discovered only 3 years ago, the welcome ceremony took place in a large room with a ceiling that seemed to show the actual stars outside the ship. Danny stood still as representatives from 17 species approached her one by one. Some bowed, others touched foreheads. One small, fuzzy alien sniffed her hand, while another sang a high-pitched note that made her teeth vibrate. Danny followed the diplomatic training she had received, responding to each greeting correctly. When the ceremony ended, Admiral Ziklara led her to a small platform. "Lieutenant Carter will be our human liaison for the coming Earth cycle," the Admiral announced. "She will help us understand human customs and capabilities and will observe our ways to report back to Earth government." A ripple of movement passed through the gathered aliens. Danny recognized it as excitement mixed with caution. "Will the human participate in regular ship activities?" asked a blob-like alien with 7 eye stalks. "Of course," Admiral Ziklara said. "Lieutenant Carter has full clearance to join any non-restricted activities, including recreation, cultural exchange, and routine drills." Commander Vexter stepped forward. "The human will join combat readiness exercises?" His tone made it clear he thought this was a bad idea. Admiral Ziklara's skin rippled slightly, their version of a frown. "If Lieutenant Carter wishes to do so, yes. Earth is now a full member of the Confederation." "In appropriate protective gear, I assume," Vexter added. Danny smiled again. "I look forward to participating in all ship activities, Commander." After The ceremony, a small floating robot led Danny to her quarters. The room was larger than she expected, with a bed, desk, and what looked like a food preparation area. The robot explained how to use the food synthesizer and bathroom facilities. The environmental controls have been set to Earth standard conditions, the robot said in a pleasant voice. Temperature 21 degrees Celsius, humidity 45%, gravity 1 g. Thank you, Danny said. When does my official duty begin? Admiral Ziklara has scheduled your orientation for tomorrow at 0800 ship time. You have been assigned a personal communication device. The robot pointed to a thin bracelet on the desk. This will translate all major Confederation languages and provide ship maps and schedules. When the robot left, Danny sat on the bed and looked out the window at the stars. She was the fourth human liaison sent to a Confederation vessel, but the first assigned to their flagship. Earth needed this alliance. Though humans had developed space travel, they were far behind the Confederation in technology and medicine. Danny touched the small Earth pin on her uniform. Her job was to show these aliens that humans were valuable allies despite coming from a world they considered terrifyingly dangerous. She needed to prove that the very conditions that made Earth a death world had shaped humans into strong, adaptable, and resourceful people. A message appeared on her room's display screen. Ship-wide combat readiness drill scheduled in 3 days. All personnel to participate, Danny smiled. This would be her first chance to show what humans could do. She opened her bag and pulled out her standard Earth military PT clothes, a simple t-shirt and shorts. The aliens would expect her to wear some kind of special protective gear, but Danny planned to show them how humans really trained. She spent the rest of the evening reviewing files on the main species aboard the Harmonious Unity. The more she learned about their gentle homeworlds, the better she understood their caution around humans. To them, Earth sounded like a nightmare planet where everything from the weather to the animals might kill you. They think we're the scary aliens, Danny said to herself, laughing softly. She looked at her reflection in the window. Tomorrow she would begin representing all of humanity to these people who both feared and admired her species. It was a big responsibility, but Danny was ready for it. After all, she was a human from Earth, the planet so dangerous that the rest of the galaxy called it a death world. 3 days passed quickly as Danny settled into life aboard the Harmonious Unity. She met dozens of alien species, learned to use the food synthesizer without making it produce blue slime, and began to understand the complex social rules of the Confederation. The aliens were polite but kept their distance. Many watched her with wide eyes when they thought she wasn't looking. On the morning of the 4th day, Danny's communication bracelet chimed softly. A message appeared in glowing blue. Letters: Combat Readiness Drill, Training Deck 7, 0900 hours. This was what she had been waiting for. Danny changed into her Earth military PT clothes, a gray t-shirt with Earth Space Force printed across the chest and black shorts that reached mid-thigh. She tied her running shoes and pulled her short brown hair into a tiny ponytail. After a quick stretch, she headed toward Training Deck 7. The ship's corridors were busy with aliens moving toward the training deck. Most were carrying large bags or cases that Danny guessed contained their exercise equipment. A small green alien with 6 limbs struggled with a heavy container almost as big as itself. Danny offered to help, but the alien squeaked in alarm and scurried away faster. When Danny entered Training Deck 7, the large room fell completely silent. Nearly 100 aliens of different species stood frozen, staring at her. Many had their mouths open. Some had changed color. One tall, plant-like alien dropped a piece of equipment with a loud clang. Danny looked down at herself, wondering if she had forgotten something. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, a familiar voice broke the tension. Lieutenant Carter. Science Officer Milana rushed toward her. The Rithian scientist had a translucent body that showed her internal organs pulsing with blue and green light. Today, those organs were pulsing much faster than normal. There's been a terrible malfunction with your protective equipment, Milana said, her voice high with concern. You must return to your quarters immediately. Danny looked around in confusion. The aliens in the room were wearing what looked like spacesuits. Some had added extra padding around their joints and torsos. Commander Vexter stood nearby in what appeared to be full battle armor, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "There's no malfunction," Danny said. "This is standard human exercise clothing." The room erupted with sounds, clicks, whistles, buzzing, and what sounded like shocked gasps. Science Officer Milana's skin had become so transparent that Danny could see every vessel and organ in her body. They were all turning a deep green color. "You cannot possibly intend to participate in physical training without protective gear." Commander Vexter stepped forward, his voice even more gravelly than usual. "It would be extremely dangerous." Danny tried not to smile. "This is how humans train on Earth. We don't need special protection for basic exercise." A small crowd had gathered around them now. Questions came from all directions. "But what about impact protection? How do you prevent friction burns? Where is your joint support system? Your skin is exposed to air contaminants." Danny held up her hands. "Human skin is quite durable. We don't need protection from air or minor impacts during exercise." Science. Officer Milana pulled out a small device and began scanning Danny's arm. "Remarkable. Your epidermis has natural elasticity and a protective outer layer. But still, the forces involved in combat training would surely cause damage." "Actually," Danny explained, "small amounts of stress and damage are how human bodies get stronger. When our muscles work hard, tiny tears form. As they heal, the muscles become stronger than before." This statement caused another wave of distressed sounds. A tall, bird-like alien at the back of the crowd fainted with a soft thump. Admiral Ziklara arrived, moving gracefully through the parting crowd. The Admiral's silver-blue skin flickered with patterns that Danny had learned meant concern. "Lieutenant Carter, there seems to be a cultural misunderstanding," the Admiral said. "In Confederation training, all participants wear full protective gear to prevent any possibility of injury or discomfort." Danny nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "On Earth, we believe that some discomfort during training is necessary to build strength and endurance. It's how we prepare for real combat situations where we might not have ideal protection." Admiral Ziklara's patterns shifted to what looked like thoughtful consideration. "This is a fascinating cultural difference. Perhaps we should discuss this further before proceeding." The next hour was spent in a small meeting room off the training deck. Danny sat at a round table with Admiral Ziklara, Commander Vexter, Science Officer Milana, and Medical Officer Prell, a squat alien with 4 tentacles and skin that looked like polished copper. "Let me understand correctly, Medical Officer," Prell said, his tentacles moving in agitated patterns. "Humans intentionally stress their bodies to the point of microscopic damage as a regular practice?" "Yes," Danny said. "We call it building strength or conditioning. The process of recovering from small amounts of stress makes our bodies more resilient. And the discomfort this causes?" Admiral Ziklara asked. "We accept it as part of the process. Some humans even say no pain, no gain to describe this philosophy." Commander Vexter made a harsh clicking sound. "This explains much about why humans have survived on a death world. You are conditioned to endure damage that would incapacitate other species." Science Officer Milana's organs had returned to their normal blue color. "From a scientific perspective, it's quite logical. Species that evolved on dangerous worlds would develop methods to improve their survival chances. If minor damage leads to greater resilience, the evolutionary advantage is clear." After much discussion, Admiral Ziklara made a decision. "Lieutenant Carter may demonstrate human training methods tomorrow. We will observe this as a cultural exchange exercise. Medical Officer Prell will monitor for any signs of serious injury." When Danny returned to her quarters that evening, she found a message waiting from Science Officer Milana. It included educational files about Confederation species and their homeworlds. As Danny read through the information, she began to truly understand the shock her training clothes had caused. Most Confederation species evolved on worlds with stable environments. Their bodies were specialized for specific conditions and lacked the adaptability of humans, Aldurians. Like Admiral Ziklara, came from a world with no seasons, no storms, and very little temperature variation. Their bodies could not handle rapid environmental changes. Even the tough-looking Krevlaxians like Commander Vexter had evolved on a world with consistent gravity and atmospheric pressure. Their exoskeletons provided natural protection, but they had never needed to develop the ability to push physical limits. Dani realized that what seemed normal to her, training without special gear, pushing through discomfort, adapting to changing conditions, was alien and frightening to these species. Tomorrow's demonstration would be more important than she had first thought. It wasn't just about showing off human physical capabilities. It was about helping these aliens understand how Earth had shaped humanity into something uniquely resilient. Dani smiled as she planned her workout routine. It would be simple by human standards: push-ups, sit-ups, running in place, some basic combat moves. But to the watching aliens, it would look like the training regime of a creature from their worst nightmares, a Deathworlder, unarmored and unafraid. Word spread quickly through the harmonious unity about the humans' strange training methods. By morning, it seemed every alien aboard wanted to witness the demonstration. Admiral Ziklara was forced to move the event to the main observation deck, a large circular room with viewing areas on multiple levels. Dani arrived 15 minutes early, again wearing her simple t-shirt and shorts. The observation deck was already crowded with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Many held small devices that Dani guessed were for recording. In one corner, Medical Officer Prell had set up what looked like a mobile hospital, complete with 3 assistants and various emergency equipment. "We have prepared for all possible medical emergencies," Prell told Dani, his copper skin gleaming. "Under the lights, including rapid blood loss, bone fractures, muscle tears, and cardiac events." "That really won't be necessary," Dani said. "This is just a basic workout." The medical officer's tentacles waved dismissively. "We prefer to be cautious when dealing with unknown physiological responses." Admiral Ziklara approached, followed by Commander Vexter and Science Officer Milana. The Admiral's silver-blue skin was patterned with formal markings today. "Lieutenant Carter, before you begin, I want to thank you for sharing this aspect of human culture with us," the Admiral said. "Many species find it difficult to understand Deathworlders. This demonstration may help bridge that gap." Dani nodded. "I hope so, Admiral." Commander Vexter clicked his mandibles. "We have cleared a safety area of 10 meters around your position. All observers have been warned not to approach during the demonstration." Dani tried not to laugh at the excessive precautions. These aliens were treating her basic workout like a dangerous scientific experiment, in a way she supposed it was. "I'm ready to begin whenever you are," she said. Admiral Ziklara made a flowing gesture with long fingers. "The observation deck is yours, Lieutenant." Dani walked to the center of the cleared area. The room fell silent as hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. She took a deep breath and began with simple stretches, touching her toes, rotating her shoulders, and twisting her torso from side to side. Even these basic movements caused murmurs among the watchers. When Dani bent forward to touch her toes, Science Officer Milana gasped audibly. "The flexibility of her spine is remarkable," Milana whispered to Admiral Ziklara, but in the silent room, everyone heard it. Dani moved on to jumping jacks. The rhythmic movement of her arms and legs caused another stir among the aliens. Several made notes on small devices. Medical Officer Prell held up a scanner, his tentacles twitching nervously. Next came push-ups. Dani dropped to the floor and began doing them at a steady pace. The room erupted in concerned chittering. "The repeated compression of her upper limbs will surely cause damage," one alien called out. "Look at the strain on her muscular system." Another added. Dani continued, moving from push-ups to sit-ups, then to squats. With each new exercise, the aliens' reactions grew more intense. Some watched with obvious horror while others showed fascination. A few of the more sensitive species had moved behind protective screens that Dani guessed were set up to filter out distressing sights, After completing 50 squats, Dani paused to catch her breath. A thin layer of sweat covered her skin, making it glisten under the lights. "She's secreting fluid!" An alarmed voice called from the back of the room. "It's just sweat," Dani explained, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. Humans release water through their skin to cool down during exercise. This explanation did little to calm the observers. If anything, the idea that humans leaked internal fluids as a normal function seemed to disturb them even more. Dani moved on to the more intense part of her workout. She began a series of burpees, dropping into a squat, kicking her legs back into a plank position, returning to the squat, then jumping up with her arms raised. The combined movements were too much for one Hovorian ambassador, who fainted on the spot. 2 medical assistants rushed to attend to the unconscious alien while Dani continued her exercise. After 50 burpees, Dani was breathing hard and sweating freely. She took a moment to drink from a water bottle, then moved on to shadow boxing. She bounced lightly on her feet, throwing punches and kicks at an imaginary opponent. Commander Vexter watched with all 4 eyes widened to their maximum aperture. The Krevlexian security chief had removed his upper armor plates, revealing the natural exoskeleton beneath. He studied Dani's movements with intense focus. "The human female is generating impact forces that would fracture Krevlexian limbs," he said to Admiral Ziklara. "Yet she appears to be enjoying the process." Indeed, Dani had fallen into the rhythm of her workout. The familiar movements were comforting after days of being careful in an alien environment. She found herself smiling as she threw a complex combination of punches and kicks. For the final part of her demonstration, Dani had requested a training dummy. What the ship provided was a soft, gel-filled humanoid shape mounted on a flexible stand. Dani approached it cautiously, testing its resistance with a light push. "This will work," she said, then launched into a series of takedown maneuvers. She grabbed the dummy, swept its legs, and took it to the ground in a controlled fall. Then she demonstrated various holds and locks, explaining as she went, "In real combat, this would disable an opponent's arm. This prevents them from getting up. This controls their movement without causing permanent damage." The aliens watched in stunned silence as Dani manipulated the dummy with practiced efficiency. Her movements were quick but controlled, showing years of training. When she finally finished her demonstration, Dani stood in the center of the observation deck, breathing heavily but smiling. The room remained silent for several long seconds, then, to her surprise, Commander Vexter began making a sharp clicking sound and tapping his front limbs together. Dani recognized it as the Krevlaxian version of applause. Soon, other aliens joined in with their own species' expressions of approval, whistles, hums, flashing colors, and waving appendages. Admiral Ziklara approached Dani, silver-blue skin, now showing patterns of respect and admiration. "That was most educational, Lieutenant Carter," the Admiral said. "I believe many of us now better understand how humans have survived on your challenging world." Science Officer Milana rushed forward, scanners in hand. "Your body temperature increased by 2 degrees, your heart rate reached 157 beats per minute, and you lost approximately 200 milliliters of fluid through your skin. Yet you show no signs of distress," Dani smiled. "For humans, this was a moderate workout, nothing special." "Nothing special," repeated Commander Vexter, mandibles clicking in what Dani now recognized as amazement. "The human considers this punishment. Nothing special." As the crowd began to disperse, many aliens approached Dani with questions. How long had she trained to achieve such capabilities? Did all humans perform these exercises? Were human children also subjected to such physical stress? Dani answered patiently, explaining that these exercises were considered basic training for most human military personnel. Even many civilian humans did similar workouts for health and recreation. This information seemed to both fascinate and horrify her audience in equal measure. By the time Dani returned to her quarters that evening, she felt she had given the aliens a new perspective on humanity, one that might help them understand their Deathworlder allies a little better. What she didn't realize was how soon her human capabilities would be put to a real test. 2 weeks after Danny's training demonstration, life aboard the Harmonious Unity had settled into a routine. The aliens no longer stared quite so openly when she walked through the ship's corridors. Some even greeted her by name. Commander Vexter had invited her to observe Krevlexian combat training. Though he still seemed puzzled by her reckless approach to physical activity, Donnie was in her quarters reviewing Earth reports when her communication bracelet chimed with an urgent alert. The small display showed Admiral Ziclaris' name and the words "Command Center, immediate." When Danny arrived at the command center, she found it buzzing with activity. Admiral Ziclaris stood at the central console, silver-blue skin patterned with what Danny now recognized as worry. "Lieutenant Carter, thank you for coming quickly," the Admiral said. "We have received a distress signal from Research Outpost Nebula 9. A holographic display showed a small station orbiting a distant star. The star pulsed with strange energy patterns that reminded Danny of a heartbeat. "Nebula 9 is a scientific outpost studying a pulsar," Admiral Ziclara explained. 6 researchers are stationed there, 2 Aldurians, 3 Rithians, and 1 Krevlaxian. They reported unusual seismic activity in their last transmission, then went silent. Commander Vexter stepped forward, his exoskeleton plates clicking as he moved. "We are the closest Confederation vessel. We must respond." "How far away is the outpost?" Danny asked. "Approximately 4 hours at maximum speed," replied Science Officer Milana, her translucent body showing rapidly flowing patterns. "But we are concerned about what we might find when we arrive." The Harmonious Unity changed course immediately. As they traveled, Danny joined the rescue planning team. Commander Vexter had already begun organizing a response group and gathering equipment. "The outpost environment may be compromised," the commander explained, showing Danny the station's schematics. "If the seismic activity damaged the environmental systems, conditions could be extremely hazardous." 4 hours later, the Harmonious Unity arrived at Nebula 9. The small research outpost looked intact from the outside, but there was no response. To communication attempts, Commander Vexter displayed the sensor readings on the main screen. "Environmental systems are failing. Internal temperature is -15 degrees Celsius. Atmosphere is thin, oxygen levels at 60% of normal. Gravity fluctuations have increased by 30%. The rescue team assembled in the ship's docking bay. 12 aliens in heavy environmental suits checked their equipment. Each suit had built-in heating, oxygen supplies, and gravity compensators. The preparations were expected to take 4 hours to complete all safety protocols." Danny looked at the sensor readings again. "If there were survivors, they might not have 4 hours." She made a quick decision and approached Admiral Ziclara. "Admiral, I can go in now," she said. "These conditions are uncomfortable for humans, but not immediately life-threatening. I can assess the situation and start emergency procedures while the team prepares." Admiral Ziclara's crest flattened in alarm. "Without a full environmental suit? Impossible. The cold alone would kill most species within minutes. With respect, Admiral, humans come from a planet with areas that regularly reach -40 degrees Celsius. We have military training for Arctic conditions. I can function in these temperatures with basic cold weather gear." A heated debate followed. Commander Vexter argued against what he called an unnecessary risk, while Science Officer Milana suggested the human might indeed have physiological advantages in this situation. "Our priority must be the survivors," Danny said finally. "Every minute we delay could cost lives." After reviewing human environmental tolerance data, Admiral Ziclara reluctantly agreed. Danny was given permission to enter the outpost with minimal gear, a heated jacket, oxygen supplement, and communication equipment. As Danny prepared to board the small shuttle that would take her to the outpost docking port, Commander Vexter approached her. "I still believe this is unwise," he said, "but I admire your courage, Lieutenant Carter." Danny smiled. "This is what humans do, Commander. We adapt." The shuttle ride took only minutes. When the airlock opened into Nebula 9, Danny immediately felt the cold bite through her jacket. Her breath formed clouds in front of her face. The gravity shifts made walking strange. Sometimes she felt heavy, sometimes almost weightless. "I'm inside," she reported through her comlink. "Temperature is definitely sub-zero. Gravity is unstable, but manageable. Moving to the main control room now." The outpost was dark, lit only by emergency lights that cast red shadows on the walls. Danny moved carefully through the corridors, checking rooms as she went. In the living quarters, she found signs of a hasty evacuation, personal items scattered, food left half-eaten. "No personnel in the residential section," she reported. Moving to the research lab. The lab showed evidence of the seismic event that had damaged the station. Equipment had fallen from tables, and a crack ran along one wall. Still, no researchers. Finally, Danny reached the central control room. The door was sealed shut. She could hear faint sounds coming from inside, movement and what might be voices. "I think I found them," she told the rescue team. "They've barricaded themselves in the control room." Using the emergency override codes provided by Commander Vexter, Danny opened the heavy door. Inside, huddled around a small emergency heater, were 5 aliens, 2 silver-blue Aldurians, and 3 Rithians with translucent bodies that looked dangerously pale. They stared at Danny in disbelief. One Aldurian tried to speak but was shivering, too hard to form words. "I'm Lieutenant Danielle Carter from the Confederation vessel Harmonious Unity," Danny said clearly. "We received your distress call. A rescue team is preparing to assist you." The Aldurian's patterns showed confusion and shock. One of the Rithians managed to speak. "How you? Functioning without environmental protection?" "I'm human," Danny explained simply, moving to check their conditions. All 5 were suffering from cold exposure. Their bodies weren't designed to handle such low temperatures. "Where is the 6th researcher, the Krevelaxian?" The Rithian pointed to a door at the back of the control room. "Engineering section. Trying to restart the main power." Danny found the Krevelaxian engineer collapsed near the power controls. Unlike the others, his exoskeleton had provided some protection from the cold, but the oxygen deprivation had affected him severely. Working quickly, Danny connected her oxygen supplement to the Krevelaxian's breathing apparatus. Then she examined the power system. The seismic activity had knocked the main reactor offline. Following the engineer's notes left on a nearby screen, Danny managed to initiate the restart sequence. With emergency power restored, Danny returned to the control room and activated the internal heating system. It wouldn't reach normal temperatures quickly, but it would stop the situation from getting worse. "Unity Rescue Team, this is Carter," she reported. "I found all 6 researchers alive. 5 in the control room, 1 in engineering. All suffering from cold exposure and oxygen deprivation, but stable. I've restored emergency power and heating." "How soon can you get here?" Commander Vexter's voice came through the comm. "Rescue shuttle launching now. We'll reach you in 15 minutes." For the next quarter hour, Danny moved between the researchers, checking their conditions and offering what comfort she could. The Aldurians were the worst affected, their delicate bodies not designed for temperature extremes. The Krevelaxian engineer was beginning to regain consciousness, his 4 eyes blinking slowly as oxygen levels in his system improved. When the rescue team finally arrived in their full environmental suits, they found Danny sitting on the floor of the control room, an Aldurian researcher wrapped in her heated jacket while she made do with an emergency blanket. Medical Officer Prell rushed forward, tentacles waving in agitation. "Lieutenant Carter, your core temperature is dangerously low." Danny smiled through chattering teeth. "It's just a bit chilly, Doctor. Nothing a Deathworlder can't handle." In the days following the Nebula 9 rescue, Danny found herself the center of attention aboard the Harmonious Unity. The 6 rescued researchers had recovered in the medical bay, and their stories of the human who entered the freezing outpost without a full environmental suit had spread throughout the ship. Aliens who had previously avoided Danny now approached her in the corridors and dining areas. Some asked questions about human physiology. Others simply wanted to express their admiration. A young Rithian science assistant asked for her autograph, explaining that she wanted to study humans when she completed her education, even Commander Vexter's attitude had changed. The Krevelaxian security chief no longer watched Danny with suspicion. Instead, he observed her with something that looked like respect. One evening, Danny received a message on her communication bracelet. Admiral Ziklara requested her presence in the Admiral's private chambers. This was unusual. Most meetings took place in official conference rooms or the command center. Dani made her way to the Admiral's quarters, located in a quiet section of the ship reserved for high-ranking officers. The door slid open at her approach. Inside, the room was warmer and more humid than the rest of the ship. The lighting was dim, with a faint blue glow that reminded Danny of early morning on Earth. Admiral Ziklara stood near a large window that showed the stars outside. "Lieutenant Carter, thank you for coming," the Admiral said. Turning to face Danny, the patterns on the Admiral's silver-blue skin were formal, but also showed a new pattern that Danny hadn't seen before. "I'm happy to be here, Admiral," Danny replied, "though I admit I'm curious about the private invitation." Admiral Ziklara gestured to a seating area where two chairs faced each other. They were clearly designed for Aldurian physiology, with high backs and curved supports for their long limbs. Danny sat carefully, trying to find a comfortable position. "I wish to speak with you away from the formality of command," Admiral Ziklara said. "What you did at Nebula 9 has caused me to reconsider many of my assumptions about humans." Danny nodded but remained silent, sensing the Admiral had more to say. "We classified Earth as a death world based on its environmental conditions," the Admiral continued. "The extreme temperatures, the high gravity, the atmospheric variations, the dangerous life forms. By all Confederation standards, your planet should have produced only simple, specialized organisms. Instead it produced humans," Danny said with a small smile. "Yes, instead it produced a species that thrives on adaptation and challenge." Admiral Ziklara's skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. "When you first came aboard and mentioned training without protective gear, many of us thought it was simple recklessness. After your demonstration, some understood it as a cultural difference, but after Nebula 9, the Admiral paused, searching for the right words. "After Nebula 9, I understand that what we perceived as dangerous or extreme is simply human." Danny felt a warm sense of accomplishment. This was exactly what she had hoped to achieve as Earth's liaison, helping the Confederation understand humanity's unique strengths. "Admiral, humans have always adapted to our environment rather than requiring our environment to adapt to us," Danny explained. "It's given us certain advantages and considerable resilience," the Admiral added. "Our scientists have been studying the recordings of your training sessions and your performance at Nebula 9. They believe incorporating some modified human methods could improve our own capabilities." This surprised Danny. "You want to adopt human training techniques?" "With appropriate modifications for our physiologies, yes," Admiral Ziklara said. "Commander Vexter has already requested permission to establish a new training program based on what he calls controlled stress adaptation." Danny couldn't help but laugh. "That sounds very much like what human military instructors would call getting comfortable with being uncomfortable." The next morning, Danny received a formal request from Commander Vexter. The security chief wanted her to help establish the Confederation's first cross-species training program. The goal was to improve the adaptability and resilience of all personnel aboard the Harmonious Unity. The program began the following week in a specially modified training deck. Danny worked with Science Officer Milana and Medical Officer Prell to design safe but challenging exercises for each species. The Aldurians focused on increasing their temperature tolerance. The Rithians worked on atmospheric variations. The Krevelaxians practiced functioning with limited mobility. Danny was surprised by how quickly some aliens took to the new training methods. Commander Vexter became one of her most dedicated students. Though he still wore protective gear, much less than before during training sessions, he pushed himself to adapt to conditions that would have been considered dangerous just weeks earlier. "You Deathworlders evolved in a crucible that would have extinguished most species," he told her during one session as they practiced in a chamber with elevated gravity. But perhaps that is why you value cooperation so highly. You understand that survival itself requires adaptation and mutual support? Danny smiled, helping the commander adjust his stance to better handle the increased gravity. I never thought of it that way, Commander. On Earth we have a saying, hard times create strong people. Indeed. Vexter clicked his mandibles in what Danny had learned was a gesture of respect. And strong people, it seems, create better understanding across the stars. 3 months. Into Danny's assignment, the Harmonious Unity hosted representatives from 27 Confederation worlds. The purpose was to observe the new training programs and consider implementing similar approaches throughout the Alliance. Danny stood beside Admiral Ziklara as they watched aliens of various species working together in the training deck. Some practiced in environments with slight temperature variations. Others tried exercises that would have been considered too strenuous just months ago. When I first came aboard, Danny said, I hoped to show that humans could be valuable allies despite coming from a death world. I never expected our methods would be adopted so enthusiastically. Admiral Ziklara's skin showed patterns of pride and satisfaction. The Confederation has always valued diversity, Lieutenant Carter. But perhaps we had become too comfortable in our specialized environments. Your presence has reminded us that adaptation is not merely a historical process, but a skill to be practiced. At the end of the demonstration, Commander Vexter led a group of trainees through a series of movements that combined Krevlixian combat techniques with human endurance principles. They wore minimal protective gear, focusing on controlled exposure to mild stress rather than complete insulation from it. They look good, Danny said. They are stronger than they were, Admiral Ziklara agreed, as is the alliance between our peoples. Later that evening, Danny sent her weekly report to Earth. Command. She detailed the progress of the cross-species training program and the growing acceptance of human methods throughout the Confederation. The final paragraph of her report read, When I first arrived, these aliens saw humans as dangerously reckless, creatures who exercised without armor and exposed themselves to environmental stress. Now they see those same traits as valuable adaptations that all species might learn from. Perhaps the greatest strength of Deathworlders isn't our physical resilience, but our ability to teach others that comfort zones are meant to be expanded, not fortified. In finding common ground between Earth's harsh demands and the Confederation's cautious approach, we may have discovered the perfect balance for facing whatever challenges await us among the stars. As Danny looked out her viewport at the endless space beyond, she smiled. Being human among aliens had taught her as much about humanity as it had taught the aliens. Sometimes it took seeing yourself through foreign eyes to truly understand your own unique strengths. And sometimes it took a Deathworlder doing combat drills unarmored to build a stronger galaxy.